Welcome back, baseball fans, to the 1971-74 Keep Wade Retire Series for the Summer League in 2023. We've been working on Tuesdays with the 25-60. The last couple times, we introduced it and we showed 8 teams' potential moves in the first round of the draft. We did it alphabetically by team, finishing off with the White Sox last time. So tonight we're going to go through another 8 teams and kind of look at where they're going to move in the draft coming up. There's still time, of course, to make last-minute trades before the draft starts. Plenty of time. The draft doesn't happen until March of 2023, so we have plenty of time for that. The next team is the world champs, Cincinnati Reds. So there's a lot for them to think about, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time thinking about the rookies because we've got some Hall of Famers here that are going to, eclipse the importance, beginning with Mr. Bench, Tony Perez, and Mr. Rose. It's kind of cool that for these 4 years, this is the first time I have 4 years where none of the Strat-O-Matic cards have E ratings on them. So I have to produce that using a formula, and I did these individually, taking my best analysis based on the information provided to how to compute the E rating, and didn't want to write it on the cards or something like that, so I put it in a spreadsheet. But it's kind of nice to see the uniformity of a player and their performance. Here's Pete Rose for 4 years as a 1. His arm went from -3 to -1. Oh boy! But the dude made 7 errors in 4 years. I mean, my goodness, folks, very consistent, And then you got Mr. Bench up here with his -3 arm, and then -4, 4, and 4. So anyway, taking up too much time because we know Johnny Bench is probably going to be. He's a 72 MVP, I believe, with his 40 home runs. MVPs have a tendency to get drafted in the first round. I'm not going to waste too much time with the Reds. You know what they're all about. We're just going to keep going. Johnny Bench will be the first round pick. Cleveland surprised everybody and won a very weak division. And again, just a refresher since I did it with the Reds. These are the 12 guys who are in the league. And they cover 6 players from 71, 4 from 72, and 2 from 73. So they get 8 more players. These are those same players in a different year should we choose to swap it out. And then we have done a consideration, an evaluation of that in another sheet that I'll show here. In the case of Cleveland, none of their players have been highlighted for the possibility or potential of being improved. So we can just skip that part of the process. That none of these guys here are going to be significantly better than the guys who we already have here as our top 12. So that means your keepers and your rookies will be part of your 8 new guys. So you got Fosse, Leone, Pinson, and Robinson. Robinson is going to be an interesting case where we're going to have a hot stove. We're going to devote a video to Frank Robinson coming up in the winter months as a special hot stove candidate, as a trade guy, a guy being dangling for a trade, because Cleveland got him from Baltimore, and Cleveland won the division. But Cleveland's going to have a bunch of outfielders that are young coming up, Charlie Spikes and Oscar Gamble among those. And Robinson might be dangled in a trade again. And Robinson plays for Baltimore and the Dodgers and the Angels, and then I have him on Cleveland here. So he does have a suitcase, and he'll travel. So that'll be a fun little video. Assuming nothing happens, they might take him first overall, but let's look at these other guys. Ray Fosse, dynamite throwing arm. He's not hitting 300 anymore, and his production doesn't warrant a first-round pick, but he's a very nice player. And Veda Pinson is getting up there in age as well, and good player, not a great player at this stage. Frankly, Frank Robinson could warrant a first-round pick with his 71 card. But let's see if there's some rookies in 73 or 74 for the Indians. When we look at the rookie classes. Guys left over from 73's rookie class a year ago. Jack Brohammer, Frank Duffy, Oscar Gamble, Charlie Spikes, Brent Strom. So Gamble in 73, he's got 20 home runs and a 793 OPS. Spikes 23, 712. Bad defense. But there's potential for a first-round pick out of those guys. 74 Cleveland class. We have Alvarado, Borgman, Brohammer, Duffy, Gamble, Spikes, Torres, and Buskey. So does Gamble get significantly better? The answer is his homers go down, but his batting average and walks go up, and his OPS goes up to 833. Charlie Spikes' batting average goes up to 271. They could be first-round picks. What about those infielders? Brohammer, Duffy? It's hard. I don't get too excited about ordinary middle infielders being first-round picks, so probably not. So there's nothing. This is the first team where it doesn't seem it's very apparent what Cleveland's going to do in the first round of the draft. This is why Frank Robinson could be showcased in a trade for a team looking for the last piece of a World Series roster. Next up, Colorado. I think I flashed up earlier this analysis of their keepers, and there are two guys, Auerbach and LaHood in 74, we need to look at, is what this is telling me. So let's go back here and look at Auerbach and LaHood in 1974. Well, actually, they're going to be up here because they're not rookies. They're not rookies. They're in the league now. So Auerbach's in the league now with this card, a 218, 546 OPS card. And LaHood's in it with a 237, 730. Auerbach 74 is right here. And this is a extra player card hitting 342 with a 791 OPS. This is one of those short sample size cards that an expansion team can use to exploit and become competitive with, which is what this league needs, because these teams are very sorry otherwise. So they need every single one of those advantages you can get with an extra player card. And Auerbach would be it. LaHood actually played significantly. 127 games, 377 plate appearances, a 271 average, 825 OPS. That's a nice year for him in 74. So those guys being improved would be good. You also have Jack Hyatt, Monday, Money, and Morton. Monday and Money, speaking of consistency, look at the Rick Monday defense here. Very consistent center fielder. He's got an 840 OPS in the years of 73 and 74. Don Money, look at it. In 1974, Don Money's a 1E8 at third base with a 761 OPS. A 1E8. Wow. That'd be fun to have. So those two guys could be first-round picks. But they also have a couple rookies to throw in as well from 73 and 74. So there's a lot of potential with Colorado, what they want to do here. 73 rookies left are Rusty Torres, Jackie Brown, Dave Hamilton. None of those guys are particularly interesting. And 74 rookies for Colorado. Jim Fuller, Art Howell, Jim Mason, Bill Laxton. Nothing special either. So it's either going to be extra player cards, LaHood, Auerbach, one of those guys, or Monday or Money. Let's go forward after Colorado. We have, so we did the Reds, we did Cleveland, Colorado. The fourth team tonight is the Tigers, a team that is doesn't seem to ever get old. All these guys play into their late 30s. Norm Cash, Willie Horton, Northrup, and of course K-Line and Freehand. This is a team that plays very late into their age, and Freehand, Hiller, K-Line, and Sherman are your keepers. Freehand has a very nice year in here in the next year. 71 Freehand is good. Hiller's got a 144 ERA in 73. K-Line hits 313, if you can believe that, with an 849 OPS in 72. He's an 878 OPS in 71. That's what I mean, folks. These guys just continue to produce. Sherman's got a good year in 71. And let's see what young Tigers are out there. The 73 Tiger rookies remaining. Not very good. Ed Farmer, Mike Strahler. Not very good. The 74 Tigers. What you find a lot of times is that some teams have no good rookies, and other teams have like 4, 5, or 6. It's often imbalanced. Here's 74, Dave Chalk, Gene Lamont, Ron LaFleur, Ben Ogilvy, Verizon, Laren LeGros, Dave Lemanchek. Well, interesting. Laren LeGros pitches on 3 days rest, but he's got a very high ERA. Ron LaFleur is hitting 260 with a 301 on base and 272 at bats. I think their outfield might be full. They got Northrup and they got K-Line, they got Horton out there. So, not sure what Detroit will do. Al K-Line makes a lot of sense. I always like to, if there's nothing obvious for a first round pick, I'll go with a Hall of Famer. All right, 4 down and 4 to go after Detroit. That would take us to the Florida Marlins, a team that's going to struggle because there's no farm system for a team like this. But they do have Felix Millan. They acquired him in the offseason from Atlanta, and he's a 1E10 in 72. It'd be worth to have a 1 on your team. You know, 1E10 second baseman doesn't sound glamorous for a first round pick. But then you got Marty Martinez, Pagan, and Repos. How about their carry-on guys? Oh, Hal McRae. Hal McRae's 74. Let's see what we got here. So here's 74 Hal McRae. Did it with Kansas City, of course. Oh, yeah, full season with the Royals in 74. He hits 310 with an 850 OPS and 15 homers. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. He even qualifies at third base and outfield. So I could see Hal McRae being a first-round pick with a 74 card. 76, you know, Hal McRae's a runner-up to George Brett for the batting title. And we know Kansas City couldn't keep McRae because you can't keep everybody. And they decided to let McRae go because he was just a designated hitter, like a very low-value position that you can find replacements anywhere for. So Marlins could make Hal McRae like one of their best players. Are there some young cats in the Florida system? That would be somewhat unlikely because it means that the traditional Major League Baseball teams let them go. So there's a long list, but they're not particularly great. Jim Dwyer, Carmen Fanzone, Pepe Frias, Mary Guerrero, Buck Martinez, Ed Figueroa, Jesus Hernandez, Eduardo Rodriguez, Mike Wallace. Ed Figueroa caught my eye, but he's too young. He's 25. He pitches 105 innings, got a 3.67 ERA as a relief starter. That's okay. Nothing screams first round, of course. And none of those hitters I mentioned, other than Jim Dwyer. Jim Dwyer, it's 279, but he has no power, so he's not worthy. And I skipped the 73 Marlins. Let's check those guys real quick. Just a couple on 73. Mary Guerrero, Hector Torres, Eduardo Rodriguez. And none of those are interesting. So, Hal McRae. Hal McRae would be a very good player for that team. So let's see how many more we're going to do tonight. We did Cincinnati. We did Cleveland. We did Colorado. We did Detroit. We did Florida. We're going to do 3 more. We'll do Houston. The Astros. They're going to, of course, hold on to Joe Morgan and up right into the trade that happens with the Reds. So once his card expires, then they'll make that transaction. They're going to hold on to Joe Morgan. Dave Duncan, Dennis Mankey, Joe Morgan, and Jim Wynn. So I'm sort of, as the commissioner of this league, or whatever you want to say, I'm making sure that the Astros don't get one of those Cincinnati Joe Morgan cards, just because I want to keep the most important part of baseball history. I want to kind of keep in order. I don't want to screw anything up, so I want to make sure I get it right with Joe Morgan's Houston performance separated from his Cincinnati performance. So I'll make a trade that separates him in the appropriate way, so as not to change baseball history too terribly much, even though I'm already trashing it with the carryover league anyway. But I want to kind of keep some things normal. So the 71 is his last year in Houston. That'll be the year they take. Whether it's a first-round pick, I don't know. They got Jim Wynn. Jim Wynn's got a nice 72 card. Duncan and Menke. Let's see if Houston has... Larry Dierker has a good 74 card. What does Dierker do in 74? He pitches... he's got a 2.90 ERA and pitching on 3 days rest. That could be a first-round pick. Dierker is... I got a soft spot in my heart for him. He had a fantastic 1969 card, which I had some great luck with, and I've been a big fan of Larry Dierker ever since. So I could see Dierker being a first-round pick, or Morgan because he's a Hall of Famer, or Wynn because he's very good. Let's go look at their the rookies in 73 and 4 for your Astros. 73... Ray Busey, Bob Gallagher, Jim Crawford, Tom Griffin, J.R. Richard. J.R. Richard is the star here, and he's still too young, though. His ERA is 4. He only pitches 72 innings. None of those other guys stand out. Let's see if J.R. gets better in 74. Let's see if that's the year we go with. 74, it's Bob Gallagher, Wilbur Howard, Cliff Johnson, Mike Cosgrove, Joe Niekro, and J.R. Richard. Well, unfortunately, Richard's still not that great. He's got a 4.18 ERA. Niekro is okay, 3.56, but he's only pitched in 43 innings. And those hitters aren't very good either. So not looking very good with Houston. I think it'll be Joe Morgan. Particularly since it's their last time to announce Joe Morgan on their team. So he'll probably be the first-round pick for Houston. Just to kind of annoy the Cincinnati Reds, you know. All right, Kansas City Royals, a very young team. And this, I think, is the rookie George Brett. Because we have Dwayne Josephson, Bob Oliver's okay, Marty Patton's pretty good, Horacio Pena, nothing special. Improving a guy internally, nothing stands out. And we know, 74, George Brett arrives. And he's good enough to play right away. Let's look at George Brett in 74. I mean, it's not flashy, but again, he's a Hall of Famer. So Brett is a 2.26 at third base. He hits 282 with a 676 OPS. It's nothing flashy, but it's George Brett. And that's sort of like, you get him into the league with a 74 card, and then you could bump him up to 75 or wait 2 years, bump him up to 76. Again, it's Brett. And the Royals want to get Brett into the league. Simple as that. All right, so we have one. We do one or two more. We did Cincinnati, Cleveland. We did Colorado, Detroit. We did Florida. We did Houston and Kansas City. We're going to wrap it up with your LA Dodgers and call it for the evening. Dodgers are up and coming. They are moving into that transition from, you know, your Bill Singer, Willie Davis, Wes Parker era Dodgers. Teams that came up short, didn't hit a lot of home runs, to the big bats of the young guns, and Lopes and Say and Baker and, you know, all those guys. So just quickly, let's see if we have a... Oh, yeah, we know who. Yeah. Joe Ferguson, 73, but Steve Garvey, 74. This is like one of the most incredible improvements. So we have his 71 card in the league, which is probably a mistake because he's not very good, but they needed to get a utility player, so they selected Garvey 71. But in 1974, he's the most valuable player in the National League. If you go to the stats up here for Steve Garvey, right here, This is the current card. Here they are. It is a 227 batting average, 290 on base, 382, 673 OPS. Actually has a little bit of power. But you're going to bump that up to an MVP of the National League. So that sounds like first round pick all over it. I mean, you have to do, one of the rules of the draft is BPA, best player available. So there's only going to be, what, 8 MVPs? One in the American League, one in the National League from 1971 to 1974. So Steve Garvey's got to be one of those top 8 players. He's got to warrant a first round pick. Which means you can actually sandbag, you know, Messersmith, Osteen, and 2 second round picks because Garvey will be your first rounder. So that's it tonight. Halfway through, taking a peek at the 25-60 and what teams may or may not do during the draft. Looking at finding some teams that are wanting. Cleveland, maybe Florida. They're looking to make a deal because they don't have anything special happening in the first round of the draft. But that's why we do this analysis, so we get all our ducks in a row before we go on the clock in March. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.